Commander Kira Valerian stared through the viewport of orbital station Prometheus as Earth burned below. The Void Weavers had arrived 3 days ago, massive obsidian structures that defied physics and logic, appearing simultaneously across the solar system. Humanity's defenses had crumbled within hours. "Status report," she demanded, her voice steady despite the horror reflected in her eyes. Lieutenant Darius Riker looked up from his console, exhaustion etched into his features. "The Armstrong lunar colony reports total destruction. Mars outpost silent for 18 hours. All we have left are the scattered remnants of the United Fleet and this station. They were the last command center of humanity. 7 billion souls, reduced to less than 30 million scattered across failing space habitats and underground bunkers. The greatest civilization in known history, brought to its knees in less than a week." "And Project Oracle?" Kira asked, her fingers digging into the railing. "Dr. Isolde Kavari says it's ready, but—" Riker hesitated. "She doesn't recommend deployment. The risks are irrelevant," Kira cut him off. "When extinction is the alternative, there are no unacceptable risks." The station shuddered as another energy beam lanced past, narrowly missing their shields. The Void Weavers were toying with them now, like a predator savoring the last moments of its prey. In the heart of the station, Dr. Isolde Kavari worked frantically at her terminal. Around her, the Oracle chamber hummed with energy, a perfect sphere of interlocking hexagonal panels, each inscribed with circuits that glowed in eerie blue. At the center floated a crystalline structure, no larger than a human heart, pulsing with an inner light. "The quantum entanglement field is stable," reported her assistant, Alien Nexus, his dark skin illuminated by the holographic displays surrounding them. "But the temporal calculations are still showing anomalous outcomes." Isolde pushed silver hair from her face. At 68, she had never imagined her life's work would become humanity's last hope. "The calculations will always show anomalies, Elian. We're attempting to communicate with our own past. Causality doesn't approve." Her terminal chimed an alert. Admiral Theron Wade's weathered face appeared on screen. "Doctor, the Defense Council has made its decision. You are authorized to activate Oracle. May whatever gods remain have mercy on us." Isolde closed her eyes briefly. "Understood, Admiral. May we meet again in a better time." As the communication ended, Elian approached with a small metallic cube. "The complete technical specifications for the Void Weaver's energy signatures," he said softly. "Every vulnerability we've identified, everything we've learned about them, along with instructions for a defense system that doesn't exist yet," Isolde added, taking the cube and inserting it into a slot beside her terminal, "and a warning that might change the course of human history." Across the station, Captain Misa Orion led a desperate defense as boarding parties of Void Weavers, creatures of shadow and distorted geometry, breached the lower levels. His squad of 20 was down to 7, their advanced plasma weapons barely slowing the enemy. "Fall back to checkpoint Delta," he ordered, firing a sustained burst that momentarily pushed back the advancing shadows. "We need to buy the science. Team more time." His combat specialist, Vanya Solikov, tossed her last plasma grenade into the corridor behind them. "With all due respect, Captain, what good is time when we're already dead?" Misa reloaded his weapon with practiced efficiency. "Because, Solikov, if Kavari's crazy machine works, we were never here at all." As Oracle powered up and the station began to shake apart around them, Kira Valerian transmitted humanity's final message to the scattered survivors. "This is not the end. This is not how our story finishes. Remember us. Fight for us. We will find a way back to you." Across time and space, something listened. Archivist Pella Ravnsborg sifted through the dust of the abandoned research facility on Europa. Jupiter loomed large in the black sky above the transparent dome, its great red spot like a watchful eye. This had once been humanity's furthest permanent outpost, until the mysterious signal arrived 70 years ago. "Found something," called his research partner Lumi Kahali, her voice crackling through his comm. She stood beside a sealed vault door, partially excavated from decades of ice buildup. "Another storage unit?" Pella asked, making his way across the chamber, No. Lumi's dark eyes were wide behind her helmet visor. Look at the markings. The daughter bore no identification numbers or standard security warnings. Instead, a single word was etched into the metal. Oracle. That's impossible, Pella whispered. Oracle was destroyed with Prometheus Station during the last day. Nothing survived. Lumi gestured to her scanner. It's here, and it's still drawing power. It took them hours to bypass the ancient security systems. When the vault finally opened, cold vapor billowed out, revealing a dimly lit chamber. At its center stood a pedestal, supporting a crystalline cube that pulsed with soft blue light. Is that quantum storage? Pella asked, approaching cautiously. More advanced than anything we have now, Lumi confirmed. But yes. As they connected their equipment to the cube, the facility's dormant system suddenly activated. Holographic. Screens flickered to life around them, revealing the face of a woman with silver hair. If you are seeing this message, then Project Oracle was successful, the recording began. My name is Dr. Isolde Cavari. The date is June 14th, 2157. In 3 days, Earth will fall to an alien force we call the Void Weavers. Pell and Lumi exchanged stunned glances. The last day was nearly 7 decades ago, but historical records were fragmented. No one knew what had happened in those final hours. We have discovered that the Void Weavers are vulnerable to a specific quantum resonance frequency, Dr. Cavari continued. But we lack the technology to weaponize this discovery. What I am sending you is everything we learned about them, along with a blueprint for a defense system that might save what remains of humanity. The recording showed footage of massive black structures descending upon Earth, of battles lost in moments, of entire cities reduced to ash. We are attempting to send this message back through time, Cavari explained. But our calculations suggest we cannot reach far enough to prevent the initial attack. The best we can hope for is to prepare the survivors. As the message continued, technical data streamed across adjacent screens. Designs for weapons never built. Energy signatures of enemies never documented in surviving records. Defense strategies developed by commanders who died before they could be implemented. There's something else, Lumi said, studying one of the displays. These aren't just weapon designs, they're plans for a ship like nothing we've ever built. The Void Weavers will return, Cavari's recording warned. What attacked Earth was merely a scouting force. They exist partially outside our universe, which is why our weapons were ineffective. But using what we've learned in our final hours, you can prepare. Pele downloaded the data to their secure storage. We need to get this to Premier Undella, immediately. As they prepared to leave, Cavari's final words echoed through the chamber. We sacrifice everything, so that you may have a chance. Do not waste it. Humanity's true final stand is still to come. Outside the facility, their shuttle awaited, ready to carry them back to Callisto Prime, the last major settlement of humanity, home to barely 3 million souls. The remnants of a once vast civilization, but for the first time in 70 years, they carried something precious. Hope. Admiral Rukia Undella stood in the massive construction bay carved into Callisto's ice crust, watching as thousands of workers assembled the framework of humanity's new flagship. 4 years had passed since the discovery of Oracle's message. 4 years of relentless preparation for a war most people believed had already ended. Will it fly? Asked General Fahim Kumar, the military commander of Callisto Prime. It will do more than fly, Rukia replied, her dark eyes fixed on the skeletal vessel. It will take the fight back to them. The ship, officially designated Retribution but already nicknamed Humanity's Spear by the crews, was unlike any vessel previously conceived. Nearly 2 kilometers long, it incorporated technology derived from Oracle's data, its hull embedded with quantum resonance arrays designed specifically to disrupt Void Weaver physiology. The power core reaches full capacity next month, Rukia continued. Weapons integration is at 83%, we're ahead of schedule. Fahim nodded, but his expression remained doubtful. And you're certain they're coming back? It's been 74 years. Oracle was certain, she answered, and long-range scans have detected anomalies at the edge of the solar system. Distortions, matching the signature of Voidweaver technology. They walked along the observation platform, passing teams of engineers and scientists working with a unity of purpose not seen since before the last day. The discovery from Europa had transformed society, giving the scattered remnants of humanity a common enemy and a chance at vengeance. In a laboratory adjacent to the construction bay, Dr. Zivan Nassar supervised the final calibration of the quantum resonance cannon, the primary weapon derived from Oracle's designs. At 36, he had dedicated his entire adult life to understanding the Voidweaver's vulnerability. Increase amplitude by 0.03 and stabilize the matrix, he instructed his team. We need perfect harmonic balance or the beam will dissipate before penetration. His assistant Tavi Voss monitored the readings. Dr. Nassar, there's something you should see. The simulation is showing unexpected interactions with normal space-time when the resonance reaches maximum output. Zivan frowned, studying the holographic display. That's not possible. The calculations... He stopped, understanding dawning. They're not fully in our dimension. The resonance doesn't just disrupt their physical structure, it forces them fully into our reality. Where they become vulnerable to conventional weapons, Tavi finished. Zivan's pulse quickened. This changes our entire tactical approach. Alert Admiral Andela immediately. We need to modify the secondary weapon systems. Meanwhile, in the security hub of Callisto Prime, Intelligence Director Niara Ellis reviewed the troubling reports from the outermost monitoring stations. The anomalies were growing, spreading inward toward the inhabited moons of Jupiter. How long? Asked her security chief, Malik Wright. 2 months, maybe less. Niara replied, her voice grim. They're being cautious this time, probing. They remember Earth's resistance. The ship won't be ready, Malik noted. Then we make it ready, Niara said firmly. We've spent 70 years hiding, rebuilding from the ashes. We don't have the luxury of more time. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Andela. Rukia, we need to accelerate the timeline. They're coming faster than we anticipated. As the message was relayed, activity in the construction bay intensified. Work shifts doubled, resources were diverted from other projects, and testing schedules compressed from weeks to days. Throughout Callisto Prime, civilians were prepared for evacuation to the deepest shelters. In her private quarters, Admiral Andela reviewed the final crew assignments for retribution. Each name represented one of humanity's best, scientists, engineers, tacticians, and soldiers drawn from the scattered colonies of the outer system. She paused at one name, Captain Caden Valerian, grandson of the legendary commander Kira Valerian, who had died aboard Prometheus Station. He had inherited not only her tactical brilliance but her unwavering determination to ensure humanity's survival. Appropriate, Rukia murmured, approving the assignment. The past and present were converging, guided by Oracle's message across time. As Callisto rotated into Jupiter's shadow, casting the construction bay into darkness relieved only by the lights of welding torches and assembly drones, humanity prepared for its counterattack, a moment 74 years in the making. The Voidweavers were returning to finish what they started, but this time humanity would not be defenseless. Captain Caden Valerian stood on the bridge of retribution, watching as the crew performed final systems checks. Despite the rush to complete the vessel, its technology was unlike anything humanity had previously achieved, a hybrid of pre-fall knowledge and innovations born from Oracle's message. Navigation systems online, reported Lieutenant Era Novak from her station. Quantum drives responding at 97% efficiency. Weapons? Caden asked, his voice steady despite the tension that permeated the bridge. All systems green, confirmed. Weapons Officer Lorenzo Reyes. Resonance cannon charged and stabilized. Conventional weaponry at full capacity. Caden nodded, satisfied. Communications, status of the defense grid? Communications Officer Petra Kai consulted her displays. The Callisto defensive array is fully operational. Ganymede and Europa stations report ready. We have a unified defense network for the first time since the fall. It was a remarkable achievement. In the 6 weeks since the Void Weaver signatures had been detected, the scattered human settlements had rallied together, setting aside decades-old disputes to face the common threat. Ships that once competed for limited resources now patrolled in coordinated formations. Scientists who had jealously guarded their research now shared findings openly. "Captain," called Sensor Officer Dayu Lin, her voice tight with alarm. "Multiple spatial distortions forming at coordinates 227 Mark 83. Distance 0.4 AU from Callisto." The main view screen shifted to show the empty space beyond Jupiter's orbit. As they watched, the fabric of reality seemed to fold inward at multiple points, creating what looked like tears in the universe itself. "They're here," Caden said quietly. "Earlier than we expected. Battle stations. Alert Admiral Andela and implement Operation Spearhead." Throughout the ship, klaxons sounded as the crew rushed to combat positions. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Osric Elliott oversaw the final power allocations, diverting energy to shields and weapons. "The core is stable," he reported over the comm. "Resonance systems drawing nominal power. We're as ready as we'll ever be." On Callisto's surface, Admiral Andela received the alert in the command center carved deep into the moon's crust. Around her, officers coordinated the movements of the defensive fleet. 53 vessels ranging from small, agile fighters to heavy cruisers, all retrofitted with resonance technology. "Launch all ships," she ordered. "Defensive formation, Theta. Retribution will take point position." As the orders were relayed, the first Void Weaver vessels emerged from the spatial distortions. Massive structures of impossible geometry, their surfaces absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Unlike the attack on Earth, these came in a coordinated formation, suggesting they had learned from the previous encounter. 3 capital ships, reported General Kumar, standing beside Andela, plus approximately 40 smaller vessels, significantly larger force than our intelligence predicted. Andela's expression remained resolute. "Numbers don't win battles, technology does. And for once we have the technological edge." The defensive fleet moved into position, retribution at its center. Throughout the Jupiter system, civilian populations retreated to hardened shelters, watching through emergency broadcasts as humanity prepared to make its stand. Aboard Retribution, Caden studied the tactical display. "They're holding position just beyond conventional weapons range. They're being cautious." "They remember what happened last time," Era suggested. "They lost ships at Earth." Caden shook his head. "No. Something's different. They're waiting for..." His words were cut short as new alarms sounded. "Spatial distortions forming behind us," Dayu shouted. "They're surrounding Callisto." The tactical display updated to show a second Void Weaver force emerging between Callisto and Jupiter, cutting off retreat to the inner system. It was a classic pincer movement, executed with precision that contradicted everything they understood about Void Weaver tactics. "They've evolved," Caden realized. "Or they brought their tacticians this time." He opened a channel to Admiral Andela. "Admiral, we're boxed in. Recommend immediate deployment of the resonance cannon against the rear force to open an escape corridor." "Negative, Captain," Andela replied, her voice firm. "We proceed as planned. This is where we make our stand. Humanity retreated once before. Not again." Caden acknowledged the order, then turned to his crew. "Prepare for combat maneuvers. Target the lead capital ship with the resonance cannon. Let's see if Oracle's theories hold true." As Retribution moved forward, breaking from the defensive formation, the Void Weavers finally responded. Beams of energy that seemed to bend space itself lanced out toward the human fleet. Where they struck, reality warped and twisted. "Evasive pattern Delta," Caden ordered. "Time to resonance cannon. Firing solution. 30 seconds to optimal range," Lorenzo reported. Around them, the smaller defensive vessels engaged the Void Weaver scouts, conventional weapons flaring against shields that had proven impenetrable during Earth's fall. But this time, something was different. The resonance technology integrated into their weapons was having an effect. creating flickers of vulnerability in the alien defenses. 10 seconds to range. Lorenzo counted down. Resonance cannon at full charge. Caden fixed his gaze on the lead Voidweaver ship, a massive construct that resembled a cathedral built by insane architects, dimensions shifting as it moved. For Earth, he said quietly. Fire. The resonance cannon activated with a sound like reality itself being torn apart. A beam of coruscating energy, neither light nor matter but something between dimensions, lanced from Retribution's prow directly into the heart of the lead Voidweaver vessel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the impossible geometry of the alien ship began to convulse. Portions of its structure suddenly forced fully into normal space-time, where they couldn't exist properly. Sections crumpled and dissolved, while others exploded outward in spirals of dark matter. "Direct hit!" Lorenzo shouted over the cheers erupting across the bridge. "Target integrity compromised." Caden leaned forward, studying the sensor readings. "The resonance is working. They're being pulled completely into our dimension." He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All vessels target the compromised sections with conventional weapons. Strike while they're vulnerable." Throughout the Jupiter system, humanity's defenders responded. Missile salvos and energy beams converged on the wounded Voidweaver capital ship, penetrating where such attacks had previously failed. Piece by piece, the massive vessel began to break apart. In the command center on Callisto, Admiral Andela watched with carefully controlled emotion. 74 years, she murmured. 74 years we've waited to prove we could hurt them. The Voidweavers reacted with unexpected swiftness. Their formation shifted, smaller vessels moving to shield the remaining capital ships. New tactics, adapted in the moment, further evidence that these were not the same enemies that had attacked Earth. "They're learning," General Kumar observed, spreading out to minimize the effectiveness of the resonance cannon. "So we adapt as well," Andela replied. "Order attack pattern Epsilon. Multiple simultaneous strikes against separated targets." As the orders were relayed, Retribution maneuvered to engage a cluster of smaller Voidweaver craft. The resonance cannon recharged more slowly than anticipated, but the ship's conventional weapons, now calibrated to target dimensionally compromised enemies, proved surprisingly effective. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Osric worked frantically with his team to manage the strain on the ship's systems. "The resonance technology is drawing more power than the simulations predicted," he reported to the bridge. "We can't maintain this output indefinitely." "Understood," Caden replied. "How many more full-power shots from the main cannon?" 3, maybe 4, before we risk core instability." Caden turned to his tactical officer. "Then we make them count. Target the second capital ship. Prepare to fire on my mark." As Retribution repositioned, the battle around them intensified. Several human vessels had been destroyed, their debris joining the expanding cloud of Voidweaver remnants. But for the first time in humanity's experience with these enemies, the exchange was nearly equal. On the fleet command channel, voices reported successes and failures across the battlefield. Ganymede's squadron has breached the perimeter, moving to engage their flanking group. Europa Defense Platform 3 is gone, direct hit. The resonance torpedoes are working. Confirmed destruction of 3 scout vessels. In the midst of chaos, Dr. Zivan Nassar monitored the effectiveness of the resonance technology from his station in Retribution Science Lab. The data flowing in was both promising and concerning. "Captain," he called over the comm, "we're seeing diminishing returns from repeated resonance attacks against the same targets. They appear to be adapting, shifting their dimensional anchoring to compensate." "Recommendation?" Caden asked tersely. "Vary the resonance frequency with each attack. I'm sending new calibration parameters to weapons now." As the battle entered its 3rd hour, both sides had sustained significant losses. The remaining Voidweaver capital ships had pulled back, sheltering behind a screen of smaller vessels. The human fleet had formed a defensive sphere around Callisto, protecting the moon's 3 million inhabitants. "They're regrouping," observed Lieutenant Era from her station. "New formations taking shape." Caden studied the tactical display, noticing a pattern in the enemy movements. They're not retreating. They're concentrating their forces for a massive push toward Callisto itself. He opened a channel to Admiral Andela. Admiral, I believe they're preparing for a direct assault on the moon. Recommend we position Retribution to intercept with our final resonance cannon charge. Denied, Captain, Andela replied immediately. We've lost too many smaller vessels. Retribution must remain operational to coordinate the defense. I'm ordering the Callisto surface batteries to engage. Caden's grip tightened on his chair. With respect, Admiral, the surface batteries lack sufficient power to— That wasn't a suggestion, Captain. Hold your position. The communication ended. Caden exchanged glances with his senior officers, each face reflecting the same grim understanding. The surface batteries wouldn't be enough. Sir, Petra said quietly from communications. I'm receiving an encrypted transmission from Dr. Nassar. For your eyes only. Caden opened the message on his personal display. As he read, his expression shifted from confusion to realization. Mr. Reyes, he said finally, prepare the resonance cannon for one final modification. Dr. Nassar is sending new parameters. He turned to navigation. Lieutenant Novak, plot an intercept course directly through the center of the Void Weaver formation. Sir? Ira questioned, checking her display. That would put us— I know exactly where it would put us. Caden cut her off. Execute the order. As Retribution broke formation, alarms sounded throughout the ship. Captain Valerian. Admiral Andela's voice thundered over the comm. Return to your assigned position immediately. Unable to comply, Admiral, Caden responded calmly. We've identified a critical vulnerability in the Void Weaver approach. Retribution is moving to exploit it. He silenced the channel before she could respond, then addressed his crew. What I'm about to do exceeds my authority. Anyone who objects should leave their station now. No repercussions. Not a single officer moved. Very well. Caden nodded. Weapons, status of the resonance cannon? Reconfigured according to Dr. Nassar's specifications, Lorenzo reported. But Captain, these settings— this isn't an attack profile. It's a dimensional inversion, Caden finished for him. Yes, precisely what we need. Retribution accelerated toward the heart of the Void Weaver formation, its engines pushing beyond safety parameters. Around them, the battle raged on, but all eyes, human and alien, were drawn to the audacious maneuver unfolding before them. Resonance cannon at critical charge, Lorenzo announced. 10 seconds to optimal positioning. Caden opened a ship-wide channel. This is your captain speaking. Prepare for dimensional inversion. May we find the future Oracle promised us. Retribution plunged into the heart of the Void Weaver formation, its shields flaring beneath concentrated enemy fire. On the bridge, crew members worked with frantic precision, knowing that the next few moments would determine not just their fate, but potentially that of all remaining humanity. Shields at 23%, called Petra from her station. Multiple. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Caden remained unnaturally calm. Maintain course. Time to firing position? 7 seconds. Era replied, her hands steady on the navigation controls despite the chaos around them. In the science lab, Dr. Zivan Nassar monitored the final calibrations to the resonance cannon with his assistant Ta'avi. The dimensional— mathematics are sound, he insisted more to himself than anyone else. If we generate a large enough inversion field, it will create a cascade effect, Ta'avi finished, pulling them fully into our reality all at once. Not just them, Zivan corrected grimly. Everything within the field radius, including Retribution. Throughout the ship, crew members secured emergency systems and prepared for the unknown. In engineering, Chief Osric rerouted the last reserves of power to the resonance systems. Core stability at minimum acceptable levels, he reported. We won't get a second attempt. On Callisto, Admiral Andela watched Retribution's suicidal charge with a mixture of fury and dawning comprehension. The ship wasn't just attacking, it was positioning itself where the dimensional barrier between universes was thinnest, according to Oracle's data. Clever, Captain, she murmured. breaking all the rules one last time. She turned to her staff. Order all vessels to maximum safe distance from retribution. Prepare for unprecedented events. Back on the bridge, Lorenzo called out, "Resonance cannon at full charge. Field parameters locked." "All hands brace for dimensional transition," Caden ordered, gripping his command chair. "Fire." Unlike the previous targeted beam, this time the resonance cannon released its energy in an expanding sphere that engulfed retribution and the surrounding Void Weaver vessels. Space itself seemed to warp and distort, light bending in impossible ways as the dimensional barriers between universes temporarily collapsed. Throughout the Jupiter system, sensors overloaded and communication systems failed. For 17 agonizing seconds, no one knew what was happening at the battle's center. Then, as systems recovered, a stunning sight greeted observers. Where dozens of Void Weaver ships had surrounded Retribution, there now floated twisted, broken hulls, fully materialized in normal spacetime and vulnerable to conventional weapons. The dimensional inversion had worked, forcing the partially ethereal creatures into complete physicality. But Retribution itself appeared to have vanished. "Where are they?" General Kumar demanded, scanning the sensor readings. "Did they destroy themselves in the process?" Admiral Andela studied the tactical display, her expression unreadable. "Order. All remaining vessels to engage the materialized Void Weavers. Maximum firepower. Don't waste this opportunity." The human fleet surged forward, weapons blazing against enemies suddenly stripped of their greatest advantage. The Void Weavers, fully corporeal for the first time, found themselves vulnerable to attacks that would have once passed harmlessly, through their semi-material forms. As the battle continued, a strange phenomenon began to form at the center of the devastation. A swirling distortion in space that resembled neither a black hole nor any known spatial anomaly. Aboard the remaining, capital ship, Caden regained consciousness to find his bridge in ruins. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across injured crew members who struggled to return to their stations. "Status report," he coughed, pulling himself up from the deck. Ira, bleeding from a gash on her forehead, consulted her damaged console. "Unknown, sir. All navigation systems are offline. External sensors are showing impossible readings." "Specify impossible," Caden demanded. "According to what's still functioning," she replied hesitantly. "We're nowhere in the solar system. Possibly nowhere in our universe." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a starscape unlike anything they had ever seen. Stars in impossible colors, spatial geometries that contradicted Euclidean physics. Beauty and terror intermingled in equal measure. "The inversion field," Dr. Nassar's voice came over the comm, weak but determined. "It didn't just pull the Void Weavers into our reality. It pushed us partially into theirs. Can we get back?" Caden asked. "The resonance generator is damaged but functional," Nassar replied. "If we can repair it and generate another field, theoretically yes, but..." He hesitated. "Speak freely, Doctor." "Captain, I'm detecting energy patterns similar to the Void Weavers, but vastly more powerful. I believe we've found their home realm, or at least a waypoint to it." Caden absorbed this information silently. Then he opened a channel to all functioning sections of the ship. "This is the captain. As you've likely deduced, our situation is unprecedented. We've been transported to what appears to be the Void Weaver's dimension. Dr. Nassar believes we can return home." He paused, looking at the alien majesty displayed on the view screen. "But before we do, we have an opportunity no humans have ever had. To gather intelligence on an enemy that nearly destroyed our civilization. To find their weaknesses. Perhaps even to discover why they attacked us in the first place." Throughout the damaged vessel, crew members listened as their captain continued. "I won't order anyone to remain in this hostile environment. We'll begin repairs immediately and prepare for return transition. But I intend to learn everything possible about our enemies while we're here. Volunteers for exploration teams report to Science Lab 2. In the hours that followed, Retribution's crew worked tirelessly to restore critical systems while exploration teams gathered data on the alien dimension. They discovered that the Void Weavers were not a naturally occurring species, but bioengineered weapons created by an even more advanced civilization. one that had apparently abandoned this dimensional pocket eons ago. The Void Weavers had attacked Earth not out of malice or territorial ambition, but because they had been programmed to eliminate any species that developed technology capable of detecting their dimension, a failsafe to protect their creators that had long outlived its purpose. Repairs neared completion. Caden gathered his senior officers. "We have what we need," he announced. "Not just defensive knowledge, but understanding. The Void Weavers aren't invaders. They're abandoned sentinels following outdated protocols." "Can we communicate with them?" Petra asked. "Make them understand. We're not a threat?" "Perhaps," Dr. Nassar replied. "Their programming is complex but not inflexible. With the right approach, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Massive energy surge detected. Dayu called from sensors. Something's coming through the dimensional membrane. On the view screen, a rift opened in the strange space surrounding them. Through it came not Void Weaver vessels, but ships of clearly human design, led by a vessel bearing the markings of Callisto Defense Force. "We're being hailed," Petra announced, confusion evident in her voice. "On screen," Caden ordered. The face that appeared was unfamiliar, a woman with the insignia of an admiral. "Retribution, this is Admiral Valerian of the United Stellar Command. We've been searching for you for a very long time." Caden stared in shock. "Valerian? That's my family name. Who are you?" "Your great-granddaughter, Captain," she replied, with a small smile. "It's been 83 years since you disappeared. We followed the quantum signature of your dimensional transition. The technology took some time to develop." As the implications sank in, she continued. "After your maneuver, we defeated the remaining Void Weavers. The data from your ship's final transmission, about their nature as abandoned sentinels, allowed us to develop communication protocols. We've established a truce. And now, it's time to bring you home." Caden looked around at his crew, faces showing the same mixture of shock, joy, and disbelief that he felt. "We're ready," he said finally. "Lead the way, Admiral." As Retribution followed the rescue fleet through the dimensional rift, returning to a solar system transformed by decades of peace and progress, the final piece of Oracle's message, discovered in the Europa facility 83 years earlier but never fully understood until now, finally made sense. The true victory comes not when we destroy our enemies, but when we understand them. Humanity's final stand is not an end, but a beginning. And so it was. Humanity had not merely survived, it had transcended, finding strength not in weapons, but in the courage to reach across dimensions and transform ancient enemies into uneasy allies. The final stand had indeed changed everything, not through destruction, but through the one power greater than any weapon: understanding. In the museums of Earth, rebuilt from ruins, the story of Retribution's sacrifice and miraculous return became legend. And in the quiet halls of the Oracle Memorial on Call,